So one of the things President Trump ran on is fixing our infrastructure. Great. Hey, I agree with that. It's actually one of the things that I think everybody from the left and the right agree on. Hey, we got to fix our roads. We got to fix our bridges. We got to fix our water pipes, our crumbling infrastructure. In fact, we're rated at a D plus for our infrastructure. I believe it's the Army Corps of Engineers that goes and takes a look at the nation's infrastructure, and they rate it from a scale of A to F. We're at a D plus. Congratulations, America. We have a D plus. We're barely passing when it comes to infrastructure. Wait a minute. We're an incredibly wealthy nation. We've got all this money. We've got all these resources. Why the hell are we a D plus? Well, it's because we put all our money into tax cuts and into the military. We can build up other nations, can't build up our own homes. Okay. So our infrastructure is falling apart. Now, President Trump, when he talked about infrastructure, I'm like, great. Okay, here we go. President Trump's talking about rebuilding infrastructure. Wonderful. Bernie Sanders also talked about infrastructure during the election, or I should say during the primary, against Hillary Clinton. I don't know if Hillary Clinton talked about infrastructure. Doesn't really matter now. It's a moot point. But at least that's two things that, again, these, presidential or these candidates had talked about. So it's an important issue among most people because we don't like to see our water fall apart, our water pipes, and we don't like to see our roads fall apart and our bridges and things like that. So it's very, very important. Now, the problem is that the Trump infrastructure plan is terrible. Now, let me point out why. Now, what it would do is that it would basically give private corporations control of roads and bridges. Now, how would they do that? It's through the way that it was funded. Now, CBS explains that Mr. Trump's plan relies almost entirely on funding from entities outside of the control of the federal government. Now, of that $1.5 trillion, only $200 billion of it would come from federal funding. So, new federal funding, he promises a $1.5 trillion infrastructure bill. We're only footing $200 billion of it. Well, where's the rest of the $1.3 trillion coming from? Well, that's an interesting question. Now, the White House, they say, would offset the new spending with unspecified cuts in other areas of the budget. The rest is expected to come from state and local governments and private investment. Oh, that means that private corporations, through a mix of maybe public-private partnerships or just private investment, will fund these projects. So in between that and the state government. So however many billions of dollars, this $1.5 trillion total package is going to come from private interests. That means, well, look at it this way. So these private corporations, do you think they're going to fund infrastructure out of the kindness of their own heart? They're like, oh my God, look at the roads. They're in such bad condition. Why don't we do something about it? Why don't we be good corporate citizens, because we're people, obviously, and fix these roadways? Because, look, we use the roadways. We actually use it far more extensively than regular traffic, and, that commercial traffic through our trucks and things like that, ferrying goods back and forth throughout the different stores and things like that. So let's fix the roads. Let's invest in our country. Do you think that's going to happen? Oh, that's a good one. No, of course not. You know what's going to happen? Look, any company that makes an investment is going to expect something in return, a return on investment. I mean, that's what? Corporate 101, right? Business 101. If you're going to invest in something, there has to be some sort of return. Now, no doubt, the PR might be decent. Slap your name on a highway. Imagine Goldman Sachs Highway. I'm not saying that they're one of the people that are going to invest, but who else could you think of that has excess money and a penchant for wanting to control everything? Just saying. Or Walmart Highway. But there's more than that. Again, these companies want to see a real return on investment. So in the case of building a toll road or Oh, I gave it away already. Sorry. In the case of building a road and a bridge, what do you think they're going to do? They're going to do toll roads. They're going to put up toll booths, and they're going to charge you to use their roads. Hey, man, look, we invested. We rebuilt this road. We fixed it up. It's ours now, and we're going to make our money off of it. We invest $200 billion or $300 billion or however many billion dollars into these roads. We're going to make some profit. That's what this is. Now, you don't believe me? According to a senior administration official in a background call with reporters on Saturday, they said, quote, the president's plan encourages new revenue streams on the state and local level. Okay. That includes taxes and usage fees. So again, this is just with the state funding, right? We're going to get new revenue streams to pay for this road at the state and local level, meaning usage fees. So the state might also put up their own toll booths and charge you taxes. Now imagine you're getting charged taxes and tolls for paying for that road because the federal government doesn't want to do it. And that's what this comes down to. So, hey, look, you're getting double taxed on this one. Now, remember, too, that in many states, corporations happen to get special tax rates and breaks, meaning that as they're paying less of the taxes, you're paying more. You're paying the taxes and fees, and now you're also likely going to end up paying for toll roads. Now, another senior administration official tells CBS that, quote, taxes are one of the ways that state and local governments could raise revenues, but are certainly not the only ways. They can sell bonds, use public-private partnerships, create user fees. We're pretty agnostic to the way that they raise revenue. Uh-oh. They're pretty agnostic as long as nobody touches their beloved corporations. They don't care who foots the bill, which will almost certainly be you. And again, with those public-private partnerships, these corporations that make an investment, they will also likely put up toll roads. Now, here's the other thing, right? Now, we already know that the $1.5 trillion, most of it's not coming from federal spending. Most of it, like I said, is coming from state and private investment. Now, only about $200 billion comes from the federal government. But again, $200 billion, not to mention $1.5 trillion alone, isn't nearly enough to tackle the problem that is our infrastructure. In fact, according to the American Society of Civil Engineers, they said last year that the U.S. would need to invest $4.59 trillion by 2025 to improve the country's infrastructure. Now, that in itself is a lot of resources. It's enormous. Now, 1.5 trillion, again, that's not even half the cost that it would take. And by the way, we cavalierly just gave $1.5 trillion to the richest corporations. Now think about that in the form of tax cuts. Gave another $165 billion to the military. Now we spend over $700 billion on bombing people. What we have is a spending problem, not an allocation problem. So we could come up with that $4.5 trillion to spend on the roads, on infrastructure. We just don't want to. The politicians don't want to. And again, Trump offering up $200 billion and that's it, and like letting the states take care of the rest is ridiculous. Now, the White House, of course, argues that no, it's more than funding. No, it's it's only one component of the infrastructure plan. No, they said at least as important as a plan to shorten the permitting process for projects so that obtaining a permit takes no longer than 2 years, according to one administration official. They said the current permitting structure is overly concerned with preventing litigation and not enough on outcomes. So their other solution to this is, let's go and let's just change the permitting process. Now, why does that matter? Well, because the permitting process makes sure that we vet people that are actually able to do the job. Now, I don't have faith in the Trump administration to do that. And I have a couple of examples that back that up. For one, they contracted a tiny company with 2 employees out of Ryan Zinke's hometown. This is Whitefish Energy. And they contracted them to work on the energy grid for Puerto Rico. 2 people. Never took on a big infrastructure project like that before. And you wouldn't believe how much they charged overhead, too. So we detailed that on another show. So that was one of the companies that got contracted. Now, of course, they lost their contract later on. And then a news story came out where there was a woman that was contracted to send millions of meals, again, to Puerto Rico, who had no employees and no previous experience with disaster relief. And she did it wrong. They were supposed to have a few million meals, 50 million meals perhaps. I think she sent out a total of 50,000. And they were wrong. They were wrong. So those picks do not bode well for the administration's ability to hand out permits. And yet they want to shorten the permitting process. Now look, there's a legitimate issue with some permits taking too long. But again, you want to make sure you vet the people who actually do the things that you're paying them for and to make sure that they can actually handle those projects. So when it comes to infrastructure projects, I want to know that my money is actually going to go to fixing that road, to fixing that pipeline, water pipeline, and fixing everything else that needs to be fixed. But, you know, the administration, again, is looking to do what they're going to do, right? What they're doing is that they're basically cheaping out on the side of the federal government and saying, hey, you guys handle it. We already blew a $1.5 trillion hole in the deficit. You know, it's up to you. It's on you, man. We're going to call it an infrastructure bill, but it's really not. Now, there's one more piece to this that I think is important, and that's the impact on rural communities. Now, one of the criticisms is when private corporations decide they want to invest in infrastructure projects, where do you think they'll focus on? Ain't going to be Hicksville, USA, with a population of 1,500 people. No, of course, it will be main roads in big cities. Now, those are the places where they can get most return on investment because more people will use that road. Do you think they're going to set up a toll road in the middle of nowhere? No, of course not. So, a lot of these places that need infrastructure the most, roads and bridges, nobody's going to set things up there. Now, maybe the Trump administration is going to use that $200 billion to help those areas. I don't know. Honestly, again, I have no faith. So, and speaking of investment, right? They also said that the plan aims to invest in rural infrastructure, and something that doesn't relate to brick and mortar infrastructure, workforce training. The proposal, according to a senior administration official, will remove obstacles for people who are looking to go into skilled trades, change licensing requirements so workers can more easily move from state to state, and expand apprenticeships. Now, again, all that sounds great in theory, but again, I don't know how it's going to shape up. Okay, I'm all for more skilled trades. I'm all for expanding apprenticeships and things like that. And again, all well and good, but that doesn't solve the problem of our failing infrastructure. Look, those states and local areas, they need federal funding. They need more federal funding in order to rebuild infrastructure. And I think what little funding they'll get from the federal government will not nearly be enough. And the private companies, like I said, will not invest anywhere where they are not assured to make a return on their investment. So these small towns and localities are essentially screwed. So as much as I love the idea of an infrastructure plan and hope that Trump would deliver, the fact is, the facts coming in on the ground say that this is basically nothing more than a scam that will enrich corporations at your expense. And that's exactly why we now refer to the Trump administration as the new swamp. Hey everybody, thanks for watching this video. If you want to see more like this, please hit the subscribe button below. And if you want to support truly independent progressive media, please consider becoming a patron at patreon.com/TYTNation.